Destin, are you guys doing that water gun game this year again at church where you have
Shut
to see
up.
if you can
You
get
just
people?
got me out.
Why are you
from
what? I don't even know. Huh? How could I do that from all the way across the country? What do you even mean?
Did you plan that out?
What out? You'd have to describe it in detail for me to know even what you're talking about.
Okay, so background. I work with the youth at church, and we play this game every year called Last Man Standing, where it's like a water gun tag game, and you're assigned a name of someone you have to take out. The whole point of the game is so that you can get to know everybody else. And so you have to like figure out
the intricacies of their daily rhythms.
They go to this school and they are out practice on this team, which means they'll be walking to the parking lot at this time. Yeah, I totally just got taken out, and I have reason to believe that you were involved in providing intelligence on how this happened.
What?
What did you do? So to be clear,
you got taken out. Oh no, what happened? How did it go down?
Okay. Long story short, I was caught off guard, and I turn around and I hear, "Excuse me." I'm like, "What's that?" And I turn around and there's a young kid aiming a water gun at me, and he legit got me. Like I wasn't, usually like when you do stuff with kids, you're like, "Oh, well, I'll just be here and maybe."
Got me.
Oh, you got me. No. He straight up got me. But what's so funny is I turn around and he's pointing the water gun at me and he says, "This is for Mr. who's another guy that I took out last year." And then he squirts me with the gun. Like it was like he had a whole like before you take someone out, you're supposed to say something to him thing going on. I never
couldn't have said it right after. You got to say it before.
And he did it. Unfortunately, he timed it so perfectly that when I looked up, I was like, what is this? And by the time I understood and computed and jumped, water was already on my back. It was great. He did a good job. Did a really good job.
Did anything happen after that, or was that about it? Just then you guys went your separate ways and that was kind of it?
Shut up, man. He made me sign his water gun with the skull and crossbones like I did last year with all the other kids.
Oh, man, that's really delicious irony. Where would he come up with an idea that sophisticated?
It was me. And so, also, it feels so good to be out. It feels so good because now I can, like, last year I was always thinking about, oh, man, could there be someone here? Like, even this morning, I thought I knew what kid had me. And so I'm going to the car, and I'm like, he could be here. And then he wasn't because my dog is awesome, and she would have told me. And I looked, and once I saw that she was just laying down all calm, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm cool. And so then I got taken out. So it was great. It was Lee's kid. So
I know.
So tell
I know exactly who it was.
How did you do it?
Okay. Well, I've been running a series of calculations regarding your life and your situations. Let me frame it up like this first.
Okay.
You and I, we've both been, pun not intended, but now I'm already committed to it, a little bit under the gun.
Okay.
There's been a lot going on. We've been investing in things that are beyond the YouTube, internet, podcast world. We've been busier than usual, pushing real hard. I've got a big project going. You've got a big project coming down the pike.
I just did the math, by the way. We're 1,370 miles apart. That's
a lot.
You just orchestrated this from a long way away. Keep going. I'm listening.
Well, it needed to happen. So when I had the opportunity to jump on a call with my good friend Lee Renna to have a long overdue celebration of my team's Stanley Cup championship, and he mentioned that his kid was doing this activity, and I discovered that you were his mark, I got to thinking, well, this is a problem we can solve. So we started working on schedules, timelines, movements. I checked in with to make sure I had a sense of your coming and going on a regular day. And as a result, I felt like I would, if I could convince you to split time between recording 2 No Dumb Questions episodes today, there would be a window between them where you would definitely be stuck, and it would need to be at least an hour and 10 minutes for me to get a hold of Lee, get the kid there and hidden, and get you either bored enough to go wander around or to get you out to eat, which is why I needed to know where you were going to eat so that I could Google the distance from where you live to said restaurant and determine how long it would take you to get back. So I walked him through the whole thing, much like in Ocean's 11, where you have the funky music playing.
Yeah.
And you kind of run through the whole caper scenario in advance, like this will happen, say that. That's when we make the handoff. I'll call here. I know your dad has a meeting, but I'll text him. I should be able to catch him. Then he signals your mom. We worked out the whole thing.
Really?
And yeah, I felt pretty good about it. I did almost have to lie when I checked in with and he answered saying, "Hey, what's up? I'm on the speakerphone with Destin." And I was like, whoa, that's a problem. I need to ask you a question about audio syncing for video editing in Premiere, which is true. And we did talk about it and came up with some solutions to some of my conundrums. So there was no lying involved in this entire activity.
Even the intent within the heart is forgiven.
Thank you.
If there's any shadow of a doubt. This was completely worth it.
So much like Ephialtes, who betrayed the 300 Spartans to Xerxes and the Persian invaders in the 480s BC, so I showed the Rina family a sheep's path to get behind your defensive position and pop you in the back. And much like Ephialtes expected a certain series of rewards from Xerxes, learning the lesson that he overasked, I asked for something much smaller in return, which I was given. I said, I will do this thing for you. I will make sure it works out, but I'm going to need you to take a Sharpie, hand the Sharpie to Destin Sandlin, and make him endure the indignity of drawing the skull and crossbones representing his own elimination on the barrel of your gun. If you'll do that, I will help you. And they said yes, and I got what I wanted. And now you don't have to worry about that during this really difficult stretch that you have coming up over the next few weeks.
Thank you so much. Because I got to study for this test. And
I know.
It feels so good to be out because I care too
much. And legitimately out. But it wouldn't feel good if you threw it. It wouldn't feel good.
No, not at all.
If you knew or that you are not that kind of man. You won't do that.
Yeah.
And so we had to have a plan, and you had to be legitimately eliminated where you can be a person of integrity and still feel like you gave it your all. It just wasn't enough because he got you.
Oh, absolutely. It's fantastic. Thank you so much. I want us to talk to Lee like right now. Is that possible? How do we do this?
I think Lee is in a meeting.
Okay.
But I am very, very much up for trying. Let me see what I can make happen here. Hey, Lee, we wanted to check in with you. Tough day for Destin here. We're trying to just kind of piece together what happened. Obviously, a lot of emotions. I don't know. I guess I'll just let him explain it.
Lee, your boy.
Yeah, what happened?
Your boy took me out, man.
Well, he had a job to do. He came to his father for a little bit of coaching, a little bit of intel, a little bit of tactics, and he is my son. And he learned and used, and well, this is how it ended.
I have to say, the fact that he pointed the gun at me, said a line, and then shot me was pretty impressive.
Well, that's the thing, is anybody can pull the trigger, but can you make it entertaining?
So
what you need to know is you were the second target eliminated in 2 days by the Runner Boys. I will not name the first, but just know that in his after-action report, Ben Renna did reach out to the youth pastor and let them know in a text, detailed description of what happened, even to the point to when he said, Dad, or basically said, 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, and then he stated that he also yelled, if you run, you'll only die tired. And so I'm pretty sure I'm going to have a conversation with the youth pastor at church and have some explaining to do.
I love it.
So they've been waiting a year for this. They were taken out the first round early. They didn't get to, squeeze the water gun trigger on anybody. And so they've been, they've been waiting a whole year for some revenge. And so the Renner Boys are coming.
I have to say, so last year, Matt, a little background last year, they really like cats. Lee's sons really like cats. And so we got a cat and put it in a cage and put it on the front porch with a little note that had his name on it. Like one of Lee's sons had a name on it. And the idea was, oh, they're going to have to come out and get the cat.
Monster. I didn't know that. I would have gone even harder on this plan.
And here's the thing: is like they were so excited about this, and then Destin and his lovely daughter were the first ones to take my son Ben out. And Ben was so frustrated and upset that he was eliminated that quick. He looked at me and he said, "Dad, I'm going to kill their cat." And I was like, whoa. I was like, all right, okay, this just went to another level. And I know you're upset. And we talked him off the ledge. And I think Destin's daughter could tell that Ben was upset. So we ended up making an apology video for not being a good sport. And but you could even tell him that he was not pleased. He's waited all year for this.
I have to say my favorite part of the whole thing last year, I couldn't remember where it happened, but it's when he looks at me and says, no, it was in the video where he looks at her and says, "Good game."
Good game, and his virtual handshake.
It like gives himself a good game. Gives himself a high five. Yep. He told me good game, and I was proud of him, man, because I was legitimately surprised, and I'm out, and that it feels really, really good to be out. Thank you to both of you for making that happen.
And no problem. Lee, one thing before we let you go.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's a tough draw for Destin. He ran into a buzzsaw. That happens. Sometimes you feel like, last year's contenders, they're going to just fly right through the first few rounds. And then you just run into that hot hand and you get surprised. I mean, it happens as part of competition. What advice would you have for Destin to help him fare better next year?
Your operations are only as good as your intelligence. I would pregame a little bit better.
Okay.
Be a little bit more aware. Head on a swivel at all times. Don't be looking at your phone. I mean, you brought it up multiple times on your podcast about that little rectangle in your head having your attention, and now you had to pay the ultimate sacrifice because of it. So,
I was
ever vigilant, always aware.
I was actually looking at the little rectangle when I got shot, and I can tell you the exact tweet I was looking at had to do with the conflict in Ukraine, and it's I just got caught. Thank you, gentlemen. This is a lesson learned.
Yeah. How do you like that? The vengeance was for his other youth teacher. That was the line. I misunderstood him. I thought he said Mr. Peace, but it was the gentleman's name that you teach with.
Yeah. This is for Mr. And he got, because I got the other youth guy out last year. This is for Mr. And then he just waxed me. It was great.
Yeah.
Good job, man. Thanks, Lee.
No problem.
Happy driving, Lee. See you, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
This episode of No Dumb Questions is brought to you by Audible, and I am noticing a new phenomenon in how my brain works that is attached to Audible. It is.
Well, first of all,
what you got?
I love Audible. It's like my favorite. I mean, how can you not love gaining knowledge by listening to audiobooks? It's like when you're doing something, you can like use your mind separately from the mundane task that you're doing or the thing you're enjoying. If it's walking outside or mowing the yard or whatever, you get to gain knowledge while you're doing that. So that's why I love Audible. I'm sorry. What were you noticing? I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Well, what I'm noticing is this. When I listen to an audiobook, somehow there is this imprinting in my brain of where I was when I consumed it. And I'm finding that is starting to help me to recall details about that as I especially am consuming history, audiobooks, and all of this. Yeah. Have you experienced that where you remember where you were when you listened to a certain audiobook or a certain part of an audiobook?
Yeah. It's like tying an idea or a thought or a character to a physical thing in meat space, right?
Yeah.
Like when I go around this corner, I think about this thing that happened and I listen to it in that book. Yeah, absolutely. That's a thing I do.
All right, let's play this game. What physical location do you associate with Seven Eves? I know you liked that audiobook.
Okay. Seven Eves is an interesting audiobook because there's two parts to it. And the second part of the book I associate with the pasture at my dad's house and me running a bush hog and thinking about orbital mechanics and what's going on there. There's another part of 70s that I associate with looking in the mirror in the bathroom, because for some reason I had my earbuds in, I was listening to it, and then a specific thing happened in the book, and I remember thinking, oh, wow. Yeah, so different moments in the book conjure up, the image of different places. We did How to Think. Alan Jacobs, what does that remind you of?
Upstream on the Poposia River from downtown Lander, Wyoming. When I was listening to that audiobook, every day after work, I would go and fish upstream from the Maverick all the way up to the edge of town, and then I would drive out and I would fish around the place where I had that unfortunate incident with the bear. And so that's what I was listening to. That's what I associate it with.
So like the whole audiobook you associate with that part of the river, or just parts of the audiobook?
Well, fly fishing is different than how you fish. I can work upstream half a mile or a full mile, and if I want to keep fishing, I can just go back to where I started. Now all of the little holes and pockets have reset. The fish forgot about me with their tiny brains, and I can work that again. And so I listened to How to Think probably 3 times, and I think 2 of those 3 times was on that stretch of river over the course of a week or so.
Dude, that's amazing. For me, it's specific moments in the book. There's a walking trail that I associate with a moment of Fahrenheit 451. There's a place in New Jersey that reminds me of Animal Farm. There's a place in Kansas that makes me think about The Hobbit.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah. There's got to be a word for this. This is a thing. It's like you're correlating the physical world with when the mental thing happened. That's interesting. Very interesting. Huh.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that. 1984, I think of a specific flight that I was on. The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, I think about another flight and where I traveled to. That was a flight transatlantic. And so I think of a couple locations in Europe where I was listening to that audiobook. Ready Player 2, I associate with pulling off the interstate in Casper, Wyoming, at the last exit as you're heading out toward Douglas and the empty wilds. I think you could mention any audiobook I've consumed and I have a place attached to it. And right now that is hyper serving me because I'm powering through books about Persia, which is, I could just go on and on and on. I'm so excited about it.
It's so weird. I just started scrolling through my library and just looking at the titles took me to different places. I just went to Germany in my head because I missed a flight in Germany, and I was listening to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when he gets into I think it's called the Total Perspective Vortex or something. I forget what it's called.
Yes.
But yeah, dude, this is really an interesting phenomenon. Okay. Yeah, we could go on and on. What is the offer this time around?
It is 1 free month of Audible, and that includes a credit. So the credits you use to grab any book, and you get to keep that one. It's your book. It goes on your device. But in addition to that, being a member of Audible gets you access to all of this other stuff from other catalogs. And they've got podcasts and additional audiobooks and Audible originals. And so you get access to all of that catalog as well. So you can consume audiobooks to your heart content over the course of a month where you're an Audible member.
Oh, yeah. The series I'm listening to right now, Backyard Starship, I'm on book 4, I believe it is. Legacy of Stars. It's by J.N. Chaney, I think it's J something Chaney. I don't think it's an Audible original, but it's only from Audible. So highly recommended. Go check out Audible. I don't know. You get one shot. I would ask people to listen to the first book of the Backyard Starship series. What would you ask people to listen to with their credit on the 30-day free trial?
Oh, wow. I loved Andy Serkis's reading of The Hobbit, whether people have consumed that audiobook before or not. I'm very high on that one. If you want to get into the world that I'm getting into right now, Tom Holland's Persian Fire is my favorite of all of the Persia books that I've been consuming.
That's awesome. Yeah, we appreciate it when you support the sponsor. If you want to support No Dumb Questions, feel free to go get a membership at Audible. audible.com/NDQ. Try it for free for 30 days. Also, you can text NDQ to 500-500 and try Audible for 30 days. It'd be awesome. Thank you.
And then get ready mentally, because someday, years in the future, you're going to have some weird connective event in your brain between the information or the story that you connected with in that audiobook and wherever you happened to be when you were there. It's one more memory hook, and we can always use more of those.
And then you'll immediately snap back to where you are right now when we told you that was going to happen.
Whoa.
It's a
extra
double
level. Thanks to Audible for supporting the podcast, and thanks to all of you for supporting the sponsors. Where does this rank all time for you in terms of things that people have done to mess with you and surprise you or trick you or something?
It's pretty good. I mean, it was well planned. I mean, it's up there. It's up there for sure. Have you been pranked?
Oh, yes.
That's what you mean, right? Pranks.
Yeah, my kids like to do it. They're just not very good pranks yet. They're still getting there. They're trying stuff like, we're going to stretch saran wrap over the door. And then whenever they do that on April Fools, I just charge right into it and flail around wildly with it stuck in my hands and face. I knock things off the table and thrash. And they're like, dang it. No. I mean, that was funny, but we didn't get him. Nah, you didn't get me. Nah, they tried to stretch some cellophane real tight over the toilet one time. And I was like, well, look at that sheen right there. I wouldn't want to pee on that. It's going to bounce everywhere. So I didn't. Yeah, they really haven't got me yet. But I've had some adults light me up pretty good.
One of the funniest pranks I can remember doing as a kid was not funny at all now that I have my adult brain, but Taco Bell for this short period of time had this green sauce.
Ooh, okay.
Do you remember the green sauce in the little clear packet?
No,
Yeah.
I don't. I'm not.
Yeah, there's a reason
Taco
they
Bell
didn't keep it.
aficionado.
But I thought it would be really funny to get that green sauce and go put it on the toilet seat.
Is it a hot green sauce?
Yeah, it's a hot green sauce. But it was meant to look like, not sauce. It was like, oh, look, someone had an accident in the bathroom.
Okay, so this wasn't like because of how much it would burn.
No.
This was just, it was a visual prank.
I don't think pranks that involve someone having a reaction, like a body reaction, I don't think they're funny at all. Like, oh, I did this thing and it's itching powder or something like that. I don't think something that physically harms a person or anything like that. That's just not funny.
No, that's not my favorite. But getting somebody to eat something they didn't want to eat, maybe.
You did that to your kids. You did the toothpaste, the Oreo thing, right?
I did, yeah. And they ate it, and one of them cried. I was like, oh, well, that's not what I wanted.
Cried?
Yeah. It wasn't because it tasted bad. It was because of the betrayal. You gave me a cookie, and it just, yeah. I don't think I told you that part before. But
that hurts, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It was
That's not what you're going for at all.
No, come here, I want to give you hugs. How important is the let the other person off the hook and in on the joke part of the prank to you?
It's pretty important. It depends a lot on the person. Okay, so one of the biggest regrets of my life is I used to work with this gentleman. Seriously, this is way up there on regrets. We had this rubber snake at the test range, and we used to... The snake would find itself into all kinds of stuff. Like, I did some funny stuff, man, like funny stuff. Like, for example, there were these welders that they always had to weld these parts up perfectly for this engineer, and the engineer was just a little bit like, he didn't really care if he was in your in crowd or not, and so they had this, like, quasi-grudge against the engineer. And so on Valentine's Day, I bought a pack of Valentine's cards, and I filled out all the Valentines to these welders from this engineer. And it had like a little sucker on it, and it was like some kind of farm animal Valentine's, like, yeah, I hope you have a squealing good Valentine's or something like that. And it was like, all right, to Donald from Bob. And, they walk in and they go to their desk and they've got these Valentines there, and like, I always thought that guy was weird. I don't know about this, So stuff like that. The last
But that
day,
doesn't sound like something you would deeply regret. Okay, there's more to the story.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, that so those are good innocent ones, right? And so we had this atmosphere of joking with each other, and one of the things that the welders would always do is we had this rubber snake, and we would put the rubber snake places, and you would find it, and there are legitimately snakes out there where we work, like all over the place, and so it's a problem. Like these snakes are a problem. And there's this guy I used to work with that was in Vietnam. It was just known how scared he was of snakes. You could like draw a picture of a snake and he was like, I don't want to see that thing. And he used to tell me stories about what he called the two-step viper in Vietnam, which was, they say, if you get bit, you got 2 steps until you're dead. You know, I don't know. That's just what they call it, a 2-step. And,
Okay.
And so one day I had a flat on my truck and I was like, oh, I got an idea. And so I took that rubber snake and I put it up under my spare tire. And have you ever taken a tire down in the back of a truck? You have to like lower it down. So I put it up in the wheel well.
Oh, that's really good.
I know. I put it up in the wheel well of the tire that you have to let down from the back of your truck. And I was like, hey man, I can't get this thing out. I think I'm doing it wrong. He goes, oh man, you know how to do it. I was like, I just can't. Get down here and show me how to do it. So he got on his back and he crawled under the truck. It's funny, but it's not at all. And so as he was coming down, I was like, I got my hand over it. And I was like, I'm trying to get that cable out, but it's just not going. And he reaches over. He's like, I can't get it. And so I was like, what is that? And I reached up in there. And as he had his arm up under there, I grabbed the tail of the rubber snake and I pulled it out from the tire. I was like, whoa, what is this? And he quit using words. Like he got so scared, words failed him, and he couldn't scream. Like he couldn't yell. He couldn't do anything. He made this noise, and I'll still remember the noise because it like came from the nostril area. It was like, can you hear that at all?
Yeah, I heard it.
Yeah, it was like he froze up and and he got up out from under the truck and he just walked off. And I realized that was not funny. That was not fun. I just betrayed trust with that man. And at the expense of a few people around, you know, it was funny and we always do the jokes with the rubber snake, but it's like, okay, I have crossed a line and this is not okay. And so I went and apologized profusely to him. But
did it work? I mean, did he accept your apology?
Yeah, later. Later.
Did you rebuild trust with him, or was there always a chunk out of your trust with him?
I rebuilt trust, but I had to go over, you know, way above and beyond to try to reestablish that. But it was hard. Have you ever done something like that?
Yes. Adam and I, my childhood friend, we have communicated every birthday with each other since we were very, very young. Until this year. I don't know why. I couldn't get him this year. He was doing something. But we still got a good streak going. Well, one year for his birthday, I thought, I'm going to create a super, super legitimate alibi that I am in Lander, Wyoming, which is 5.5 hours away from where he lives. And so I don't remember if we were on a video call or what, but he saw me in Lander. And I was like, all right, well, hey, have a good birthday, man. Happy birthday. All right, see ya. I immediately jumped in the car and sped aggressively across the state of Wyoming, which you can kind of do if you have Wyoming plates. I got down to Colorado in record time. I know the code to the door on his house, so I went into his house where he lives alone. I know that there's a gigantic mountain of blankets that he keeps right next to his chill chair in front of the TV. And so I went and hid underneath the blankets like E.T. amongst the stuffed animals. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And it was real hot. But I was committed, and I waited. And finally, I hear the door jostle. Hear him come in. Hear him, heavy breathing the way you would if you think nobody's around. Okay. All the mouth noises, everything. Guard is totally down. And I start feeling guilty already. I'm like, that's not nice. He's not doing anything wrong. This still feels voyeuristic. I've gone too far. and I'm still going to see this through. So I'm sitting there in all the blankets, and he comes and sits down right next to them. And I get to thinking,
oh my goodness,
I need to let him off the hook. But then I thought, but the longer he sits in that chair with me having been right next to him, the funnier this gets. And so I just stayed in there. He watched some TV. It got on into evening, and I just stayed. I'm like, the joke still counts. The timestamps are still in place because we made the call.
Yeah.
I sprinted to Colorado. I had to get in the door before he did, so I'm still going to get credit for the timestamp. When he psychologically is running this, he's not going to be able to add it up that I'm here in any time. I mean, he's going to freak out. So I just kept waiting. And he's not doing anything embarrassing. Like, if he starts doing something embarrassing, I'm going to let him off the hook right there. But he doesn't. I'm staring at him. Like, I'm looking, I got one eyeball looking right through this little hole in the fort that I made and all these blankets. Just watching him, eating his food, watching the TV.
Are we talking an hour?
Jokes.
2 hours?
It was a long time, man. I don't know. I couldn't say at this point, but I think I was in there for well north of an hour for sure.
What?
Yeah, it might have been a couple. I was in there for a very long time. And finally, I was like, I don't remember why, but I was like, it's time. So he's kind of sitting there, just relaxed. He doesn't have his food or his beverages physically on him anymore. He'd moved them aside. I thought that would be considerate to wait for those to go away so they wouldn't get dumped or exploded. And so then, like a great big giant blanket monster, I just situated my legs so I was ready for like the full exploding squat thrust to jump. And I just burst out of the blankets, like right over the top of him. Like I'm looming over the top of him. Happy birthday! And he did the same thing your buddy did. He just shut down. He didn't laugh. He didn't scream. He didn't say any words. He just went, and then finally he recovered and realized what all had happened and said some questionable words to me. And then we laughed really, really, really hard about it for a really, really long time. But I felt like God with humanity after the flood. Like, I got to do something, or every time it starts raining, they're going to imagine this whole thing's going to flood, bodies in the water and everything. Like, every time Adam comes into his house now,
yeah,
like there has to be some kind of rainbow gesture here so he knows we're not doing this again. So I told him, all right, hey, while we're still laughing about this could change our relationship forever, and it could change your life if you know this is a thing I could do. You can do this back to me. You owe me. But it has occurred to me while I was sitting in the laundry blanket heap that this was not a good idea. You have my word as your brother, as your lifelong friend. I will never do this to you again. You do not have to look over your shoulder. I promise you, I will never do this to you again. And I've never done it to him again because it would wreck everything. But I don't know. I guess my point is that's kind of mine where I got into it and realized, might be crossing the line where mine's different from yours, is it was Adam. And
yeah,
they've known Adam since 4th grade, and we've been through everything together. So I was sure I had the relational equity banked, and I didn't embarrass him in front of anybody other than the whole internet now. So it wasn't so bad. Whereas your buddy, your coworker,
there's no way you were in there for over an hour. There's no way.
I was in there for sure an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't get home right away. I mean, I'm in there checking my phone like, what the heck? What's going on? How long can this be? But then I stayed because the joke kept getting better.
That's amazing, dude. Yeah.
I feel pretty good about it.
I want to tell you something that happened the other day. I was at one of my kids' sporting events, and someone came up to me, and they said, hey, you're Destin, right? I was like, nice to meet you. I'm Destin. They told me their name. And they said, I support you on Patreon for No Dumb Questions. And I said, thank you very much. And then I explained why that was important. I think things are getting weird, probably next year. And I told them why, the fact that they support on Patreon is so important. Things I don't normally say here. But I just thought that person was really cool. And the way they came up and said hi and said that meant a lot to me. And I told them that. So, does it happen to you?
Yeah, it's been wild the last maybe 6 weeks for whatever reason, I just keep running into people in the wild who are familiar with your stuff or the stuff we do together, 10-minute Bible hours stuff. And those have just been delightful interactions. I was at a restaurant the other day, and all of a sudden a little lava cake shows up. I'm like, ma'am, I don't know what this is. And she's like, you see that guy right over there? He says to tell you he likes your internet thing. Oh, sweet. I got a free lava cake. So I went to that guy, and we ate the lava cake. It was awesome. It was the nicest thing.
That's cool. I just want to say thanks to that individual in particular. You remember who you are. Thank you for supporting on Patreon, being a winged hussar. Means a lot. I'm grateful.
As am I. And I want to be, for whatever reason, I feel kind of guarded about the Patreon thing. Like, I don't want to say necessarily what I really think, but what I really think is it's a weirder business making stuff on the internet than you might imagine. And the patron thing is the most stabilizing force economically, even in terms of the internet social circle in which we run. I mean, it's kind of an imbalanced relationship. We do a whole lot more talking than we do listening just because of the nature of the medium. But the Patreon thing is very grounding, very stabilizing. Those are people who could have this for absolutely free. But they're like, I see something there, and I would like for that thing to continue. I see something useful in that, and I want to invest in it, whatever that might be. And so we always say, oh, thanks. I appreciate it. But when you run into somebody and they're like, hey, and I support the thing on the internet. Like, I feel an emotion. I feel really earnest gratitude. And I've never known quite how to say it, and I'm still not saying it well. But I think what I feel is thank you, because you are a stabilizing force in my life. And I really appreciate what you do. And it's hard to properly say how, but there's my attempt at it. So question for you.
Yeah.
We have two examples here of pranks that run right up to the edge. You got pranked, if you will, today in a way that I think everybody agrees is completely healthy. Like, that's fun. Good time for everybody. Everybody's laughing. What is the anatomy of a good prank?
I think number one, you have to choose the person you're going to prank well.
Okay.
Yeah, there was this period of time where you saw these YouTube videos and it was like, it's just a prank, bro, and it's that doesn't work. I think there needs to be an element of trust, but also a fun, joking relationship between the parties. That's necessary. You can't just prank a random person. You need to prank someone that, I don't know, what do you think of those hidden TV shows?
Well, that's exactly how I was going to push back on you. I think they're delightful. Do you ever see those just for gags shows that they do in Montreal? They don't have, nobody speaks because I assume it's all in French.
Yes.
And they want to make it for a general audience, so nobody talks. Very, very clever on their part, by the way.
It is, yeah.
I think those are super elaborate and funny. The stuff they do to people. The joke, I saw one the other day where the main guy on that show, he's sitting there just making eyes at this lady. Like, they're just both at a table, a little, French-style cafe, and he's staring right at her. Like, wow, dude, that is very direct. And she's like making eyes back at him and kind of nervous and kind of uncomfortable and kind of smiling and kind of likes it, but it's kind of weirded out. Then finally she goes to engage with him, and he's staring in the same direction he was before, and then he fumbles around on the table and picks up some blind person glasses and puts them on and walks away. That to me is really funny, even though it was a stranger.
That's
and then,
really
of course,
funny.
he takes the glasses off. He turns around. He puts his arm around the lady. They point at the camera, and everybody's just howling, and everybody's in on the joke, and they're laughing. So that makes me think that your point one of your anatomy of a good prank is not absolute, because there's a way that you can do it with a stranger that would never work with somebody you know. And if you frame it right, that shame doesn't last. They feel like they're in on the joke. They had fun with it too. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Also, there can't be, and I think this is why I crossed the line. There was an element of fear in the joke that I played on my coworker. Like, he was genuinely afraid in the moment. That's not great. I don't know. Those aren't great pranks. If someone thinks they're in danger or there's fear involved, I think awkward is okay. Like, oh, we made it weird for this person. Like, you've seen the ones where they go into a porta-john I think on that same show, and then they walk out and people have built this like boardroom around them. Have you seen those?
Yes. That's amazing.
Those are great.
Yeah, like they just carry in a whole boardroom. So you walk out of the pooper into a board meeting.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Phenomenal.
Everybody looks at you like, what's going on? But if the person is scared, I don't think that's great. I don't know. There's some other good things like the was it Harvard and Yale that used to play jokes on each other? I forget which one it was, but one of them assembled a Volkswagen Beetle. Like they disassembled the whole car and then reassembled it on the roof of a building.
Oh, that's excellent.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff like that's really good as well. But
yeah, those kind of college pranks are great where it's light vandalism and it's kind of like job security for whoever has to clean that up on campus. Like your job is fix pranks. I think those are pretty harmless.
We had some neighbors across the hall in college at the apartment complex that they would always throw these elaborate parties, and they were super, super loud, and we were nerds, and that was just too much. But the apartment complex was set up in such a way that the main breaker boxes to each individual apartment was outside, and you just had to go like grab the handle and turn the power off to the apartment. It was that easy. And so
okay,
we just went and turned the power off to the party, and we're like, oh, and they walked outside and it was dark. They're like, man, what happened? It's like, oh, I think I don't know. I think we blew a breaker or something. Like, oh, okay. Well, my buddy here is an electrical engineer. Let's check it out. So my roommate went over with a multimeter, and it's like, where's your breaker panel? And so they're like, oh, it's in there. So he walks in there, and I'm on the outside of the building, like 3 1,000, 4 1,000. Click, and I click it back on. And so we did that several times to the party. Yeah, stuff like that. I don't know.
And did you tell them you did it, or was that just, haha, look what we did, inside joke for you?
Yeah, that's the way we did that, which made it wrong.
See, I'm not sure it does. See, this is tricky, right? I honestly don't know off the top of my head why some pranks work and some pranks don't. I suppose you got to ask the same question that you're supposed to ask, or that I ask people to ask when we're game planning a difficult conversation. Somebody's like, hey, I'm into it with this friend. This person wronged my kid and I want to go talk with them. You know what question I always ask. What do you hope to accomplish? And it's not a rhetorical question like, so don't go talk to him because you're not going to accomplish anything. No, you could accomplish something. It's good to go try and work things out with people, but you got to have clarity on what it is. What outcome do you want from this conversation? Because how you have the conversation is dictated by that. I think that's question number one with a good prank. What outcome are you hoping for? Are you trying to socially punish someone who's gotten a little bit uppity? Because then you do want to get into that place that I wouldn't want to get into with my buddy Adam, where it went too far, which is, now he's a little bit laid bare. Now, I kind of got into his private world a little bit with his guard down, and that's not totally fair. Or the kind of prank where, like, you find out how somebody would react if you faked a charge of, like, a really humiliating, serious crime. What if they accidentally admit to something that they did do in the past? Like, there's certain pranks where you're really putting somebody on the spot, and it could go quickly. It could escalate to really shameful, really embarrassing. You can't unsee that. So generally speaking, I think a good prank does not have much potential for really exposing someone and humiliating them at a level that could permanently change their life. But maybe you're okay if the goal of your prank is, as a group of people, to take somebody down a notch who's gotten a little bit uppity. Maybe a little bit laid bare or embarrassed would be okay in that point. I don't think that's something I would want to do. That's not a technique I'd want to use, but that's a strategy for a prank, right? So you got to ask the question, what are you hoping to accomplish with the thing? Who gets the laugh? Who's the butt of the joke? How long are they on the hook? Are we going to tell them that they were that it happened, or are we just going to let the embarrassment sit? It's all considerations.
I think you bring up a good point, because how I would react in a situation thing, especially if it's embarrassing in any way, if it's a little too real, if I'm taking it too seriously and too real, and then show you something about myself, yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing, because a lot of times you don't know those things about yourself until you're in the moment, right? But sometimes that can be hilarious. Like if some of these pranks when you scare somebody and a big grown man screams like a girl, that's funny.
I do like that.
You know, that's
I really liked the sound Adam made. I really liked that sound.
So, I mean, if that person has a good sense of humor, it's cool. If they don't, it's not cool. I don't know, man.
Okay, this is what I'm finding. We're having a tough time coming up with what the ground rules are, what makes a good prank. Because this is tricky. It's a complex social function when you're pulling off a good prank. So let me ask it a different way. What is the social function of a prank? Why do they exist? What do they do for relationships and society? Why do all cultures have this?
It demonstrates that you're able to take trust, or that someone, like, you're able to take trust that someone has in you, and you're able to use it for other reasons. So I think to some degree, it's about demonstrating how with it or not with it the other person is. I don't know if that makes sense the way I said that, but it demonstrates that someone is able to be deceived, or they're gullible, for example.
So that's mean.
It can be, but at the same time, it could sharpen people. It could make them be on their guard a little bit more.
Is that good? Do we want to be more guard up with people?
I don't know. Why is it funny? There's someone, you always play a prank on someone. So there's always a victim of the prank, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Can you remember the last prank you pulled?
Yeah, I had a buddy who was in a water gun contest where
Shut up.
you want to be the last person to get...
That wasn't really a prank, but what, like...
It felt like it. It was an elaborate caper.
So I was the victim in that case. Yeah, I guess literally I got shot with a water gun.
And then you got shamed by having to draw a skull and crossbones.
I texted you the picture. Did you get it? The picture of the skull and crossbones?
But I'm very excited to see it, and I'm going to look now, even though we're having a conversation, because I have to know.
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
I'm thrilled with how that worked out. Wow, he looks like Lee. I totally see it. That's awesome. There are in pranks and out pranks, though, right? We have been on the receiving end and on the giving end of pranks that were meant to communicate, hey, you're not an outsider here anymore. You're in. We like you. It's just clear that this means that people care about you. You've also given and received pranks where it feels like, that was maybe a little bit meant to hurt.
I do this thing with a lot of the kids that are in our little social circle where I'll do the old school, like, point at your shirt thing. Oh, look at that. Huh? And then I just, finger up and hit him in the nose. Like, oh, gotcha. It's so lame. It's funny. But the kids now are like, no, can't get me. I'll say, what's on your shirt? They're like, I don't know. What is on my shirt? And, you can't. And there's this moment of like, haha, I'm with it. You can't get me. Mm-hmm. And so there's an element of that. I don't know. Surprise parties are good. That's not really a prank.
Yeah. Somebody threw me one of those 11 months ago. It was great.
10-4. Good buddy. Yeah.
Yeah. People manipulated me and goofed around with me and stuff. And so I didn't know what we were doing or what was going on. And I was like, so that's kind of a prank. Like, people tricked me into a thing for my own good to say, we love you and care about you. That was definitely an in prank. But I can think of some school pranks that I don't think they still hurt, but I don't even really want to tell the anecdotes on the internet. Like, maybe they do still hurt a little bit. I can think of stuff that happened particularly in elementary school and middle school where the message was crystal clear. You're not from here. You will never be one of us. Quit trying to blend in and act like you're a part of this thing.
Dang.
It was meant to alienate. And it worked. It was very effective, particularly at the little school I went to in Alt, Colorado. I was on the receiving end of a couple of things like that. And it was such a lonely time. Just living in this very difficult little community outside of Fort Collins. I did not have a lot of friends. It was not going well. And I was just one of these, hey, we're going to Ted Lasso this thing. I'm going to power through it. You know what nobody hates? Somebody being nice to them. So I'm just going to be nice to people. I'm going to ask them questions about their lives, and I'm going to try to be helpful. Well, I don't know. When you're 7th, 8th grade, you don't really have any great strategies for how to help other people. So you end up kind of just being more in the way. And I don't know. Like, of course I didn't know what to do, right? I had a strategy. I didn't know how to execute on that strategy. Yeah, my class there really wanted me to know, you are not a part of this and you will never be a part of this. Quit trying to make you being a part of this happen. It's never going to happen. And it was embarrassing. Super hurtful.
That's interesting because I'm thinking about the bully in the bully archetype in the old high school movie, and the tricks that bully plays on the out kid are very similar to jokes you would play on Friends. The only difference is the heart behind it. That's really the only difference. Some of them.
I think you're right, but I think it very subtly bleeds through in a few external practical details. Like if I was going to do something to Adam, if I was going to do something to you, if I was going to do something to somebody I love, like I really want to make sure I've thought about it. And if I have any questions about how that might play and I still decide to execute, I want to make sure it doesn't happen in front of people. Like I don't want to take the risk if I'm not really sure. Like I'll take the risk and nobody really saw it and we just have a laugh or it's just kind of a dud, whatever. But the heart behind the Johnny Lawrence 80s, 90s high school bully type is, oh no, we want an audience for this because I'm going to gain something socially. I'm going to put other people who might defy me on notice, and I'm going to eliminate a potential rival.
Eliminate. Oh, interesting. Huh.
That's really what happened. I feel I got socially eliminated that year of school, like just defeated. I got beat by smarter, more sophisticated people who were more socially nimble than I was. They used the tools at their disposal to just box me out. And I don't know if they viewed me as a threat. They shouldn't have. But I just did not have the tools to compete with that. And I just kept getting humiliated in front of large groups of my peers. But Leonore still went to the dance with me, so that was nice.
How long did you stay at that school?
Oh, not long. No, my parents got me out of there. It was a bad deal. I don't feel any nostalgia for that era of my life at all. And when I picture that time, I don't picture the warmth of my family. I don't picture what spring was like when the leaves would come in on the trees and in our pretty flower garden in the backyard. I don't picture my hijinks or riding bikes around town or playing Nintendo games with my buddy Aaron, who was just a great dude. I picture how it felt. I pictured being on guard all the time because the next thing is just going to happen. It was just a matter of time. And I didn't know how to break the cycle. I just lacked the social sophistication to figure out how to break that cycle and break out of it. And so by partway through ninth grade, it was pretty clear we were going to do something different for school. And Mom ended up getting a job in Greeley, Colorado. And I went to high school there at the school that she was teaching at. And that went way, 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 way better. So much better, in fact, that I got a couple incidents there where my brain was still saying, hey, I need to play a prank to correct somebody who's being a jerk. And then later realized I was the jerk, had to apologize to that person and make sure I did it in front of people so as to undo the thing I did so I wouldn't be like the people who made my life miserable in alt.
Oh, wow.
Huh. Yeah, I threw a guy into a bush with some friends, and I thought we were putting a bully in his place. And about 24 hours after that, I realized, no, I am the bully. Huh. It was pretty ridiculous and way overly dramatic, but I apologized in class. Teacher, I got something I need to say. May I? Okay. Hey, yesterday I did this. I thought it was a good idea. It wasn't. I'm not going to say the kid's name. I just need to apologize to you right now, man. I've been through a lot too. I shouldn't have done that. All emotional and
Did you
crap.
really?
I did.
That's good.
I did.
That's a big thing, man, to do that.
I don't know. It's tough being a kid, man.
What did other people say when you did that? How did they react?
I was so in my own world, I didn't really observe. I don't know. The other kid forgave me, but we were never right again after that. So, everybody remembers the times people made them feel bad. And then from time to time when you lay in bed awake at night, you realize the times you made other people feel bad. And it's like, oh, gross. I did that too.
Don't you hate that when you're about to go to sleep and your brain's like, hey, I've got something we can think about?
Remember that time you threw that kid in a bush?
Remember that time in 5th grade where you, yes, exactly.
Yes, I do remember, as a matter of fact. Thank you, brain.
Shut up, brain. Golly, man.
It is funny. You go to bed at night. You never lay in bed, or I don't at least, and stare at the ceiling, and your brain's like, you know what was awesome? When you won that kickball game in 4th grade.
Yeah,
and then you were
exactly.
so gracious to everybody you defeated. That was awesome. You know what else was awesome? That time when that girl that you thought was super cute in 8th grade was walking by and you had your dirt bike out and you were ramping off of stuff and you were like, I'm going to try the coolest move I've ever done to impress her. And then you did it and you nailed it. And she was like, cool. Remember that? No, never. It's always stupid things you said and all the dumb ways you embarrassed yourself. And yeah, no, it's amazing. Thanks, Brain.
It's absolutely right.
Appreciate that bedtime, Brain.
Well, thanks for taking the time to help a young boy reach his dream of taking me out with a water gun.
Yeah. Golly, thanks for being such a good sport. I had no doubt that you would be. That made it all the more fun to scheme against you instead of with you, as is usually the plan. And the sum of all of our musing about pranks, I think this is how I would put my little bow on that. I think there are in pranks and there are out pranks. Pranks meant to make people feel like you're in or you're about to be in. Pranks meant to make people feel like they will never meet up to your standards of cool, so quit trying. And I regret every time I participated in an out prank, and I don't think those are good. I think it's mean with a smile. I was only joking behind a horrible thing that you do to somebody. But I think in pranks are really good. And I don't think it is a good thing societally to say people could feel bad about pranks, so let's just demonize those and make them go away. Because pranks can be a thing that have an amazing way of changing somebody's social fortunes forever by communicating to them, we accept you, we trust you, we have mutual respect, or we couldn't pull something like this on you. I think it's just the intent behind it and then how it gets played out. That's the difference between a good prank and a bad prank.
Huh. I really appreciate that. I've never even thought about that. Next time I do a prank, I will have to think about that and make sure that I'm doing it in a way that will ultimately bring me and the victim of the prank together, because that's the goal, right?
Yeah, or elevate their status even if you're taking one for the team in doing the prank. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for actually drawing the skull and crossbones on the barrel of that kid's gun. That was very, very important to me. Those were my terms. I knew you would do it. And you came through. Thank you.
It was important. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, buddy. Catch you soon.
Later.